So I've decided that today I'm going to make a dress. I have this K-Facet fabric that I really want to use before the summer completely disappears. I'm filming this on September 8th, and it seems like everyone is talking about fall and autumn and Halloween and how they're so excited. And I'm excited too, but that is not the weather we are having here. It is still 80 or 90 degrees out with 80 or 90% humidity, and it is hot. So I am not going to be breaking out the wools or the orange tone materials or anything resembling autumn until it at least gets down to being consistently 70 degrees. So today I'm going to work on just a cute little summer dress that's going to be really simple. It's 1950s inspired. It doesn't have sleeves. It closes with a zipper. It really should not take me more than today to finish. So let's hope that I can make that happen. I've already drafted the pattern and I've made a mock-up for the pattern, so I'm fairly confident that this is going to fit. I haven't figured out the skirt yet, but I think it's going to be pretty simple. So I'm just going to get this laid out and start getting it cut out. I'm quite mad at myself over the zipper situation. I have this one in my stash that will work fine, but last week I was at an antique store and they had this one person who was selling vintage zipper bundles, and these were dress weight metal teeth zippers, so they were probably from the 50s, and they were selling like 6 of them for $1. So I purchased 3 bundles in colors that I knew I would use, and I cannot find them anywhere. So I think when I was cleaning up my sewing room, I ended up accidentally throwing them out because they were in a plastic bag and the top was knotted since they didn't smell great and I wanted to clean them before I introduced them into my sewing area. But I think I threw them out by accident and I'm very annoyed about it. So I lied. Apparently this isn't a K-Facet fabric. It says on the side that it is by Phillips Jacobs for Rowan Westminster Fibers. And it is called Market Basket if you want some. But it was in the K-Facet section when I purchased it. And I got this from a store in Pennsylvania. I really loved the scale of this print. I really like it when you find a fabric and it looks like a typical floral, but it ends up being weirder than a typical floral. I think that's why I gravitated to the fish fabric so much. And that's why I really liked this one as well. I kind of want this front section to be on a fun part of the print, which means I might end up fussy cutting it out a little bit and using up more fabric than I should. I may have already explained this in the intro, but I just want to talk a little bit about why I gravitated to this fabric and some of the other prints that I showed at my Lancaster, Pennsylvania haul if you watched that. This summer I really started building or planning to build my mid-century inspired wardrobe, and I purchased a lot of very lightweight cotton fabrics for it, which were just perfect for the period, and I was so excited that I'd managed to find, because it can be difficult to find cottons or rayons or just materials that are lightweight enough for what would have been used historically. So I was really proud of the materials that I'd found and I was really excited to work with them. And I'd also purchased a couple dresses made out of, similar lightweight rayons or cottons. And they're beautiful and they're elegant and they're understated. The focus is definitely on the shape of them and how they were pieced and pleated as opposed to an obnoxious print like this one. But to be honest, I have not worn those dresses at all, like literally at all. Because even though they are gorgeous and wonderful and I love them, they are very sheer and they require me to think a lot about what foundations I'm wearing. At the very least, I have to make sure that my bra and my underwear won't show through, that they're in a light enough color where that won't be an issue. And usually it is still an issue and I have to wear a slip with those dresses. And when it is that hot out, I don't want to be wearing another layer of fabric against my skin. So I really have not gotten the wear I'd hoped to out of those dresses, and my summer wardrobe and aesthetic hasn't quite been what I thought it was going to be. Instead of wearing and making those really lightweight dresses with the focus being all about the way they're pieced, I've been wearing a lot of printed dresses because they hide enough that I don't have to worry about wearing a slip. So the dresses I've probably worn the most include that floral dress made from Vogue pattern, which I showed in a video, along with a couple floral dresses that I purchased. And they're far from my favorite dresses that I have in my wardrobe, visually at least. They don't have the most detailing. I don't think they're the most flattering. I don't like the colors of them the most or the designs, but they're the ones that have been the most functional for me throughout the season. So next year I need to either consider buying some more opaque fabrics that could work for summer dresses that have the detailing that I'm looking for, or I need to focus on finding foundations and really lightweight slips that wouldn't be too uncomfortable to wear underneath those dresses that I love so much. For now, I don't really feel like doing that, and I'm kind of enjoying having the opportunity to buy some really fun prints like this one and to actually get some wear out of them. So that is what I'm doing today. I think it is currently around 12:15. And I'm going to work on this until 1:30, I think, and then I have a little video clip to film, and I have to go to Home Depot. I need to build a background of sorts, so I can take some photos of a project on Monday, and it's currently Saturday, so hopefully we can make some progress on that. So now I've cut everything out twice, so I have both the lining and the top layer. I was originally going to just cut the pieces out partially, once again, to create facings, but then I'm going to have to hand stitch them in, which is going to be like some amount of effort. And if I do full lining, then it's going to be less effort, which I am all about. So now I'm just going to mark the darts onto the back panels. I know I've said that I don't really like using interfacing on garments that I'm planning on washing, and that's definitely still the case, but the dress I made following the Vogue pattern had this interfacing in it, and it's actually held up surprisingly well. So I think I'm just going to go ahead and use it here. Progress has been made. I showed that I got everything cut out, and I also got the darts pinned into the back panels. Now those are sewn into both the lining and the top layer. Then I also stitched up the shoulders, and then I sewed the, I guess it's a waistband, but it's a very large waistband, to the lining, and I got the interfacing ironed into it with mixed levels of success. I still don't like interfacing, but that will help the shape quite a lot. And now I'm just going to pin the lining to the top layer, the right sides facing each other, then I'm going to stitch around the neckline to nicely finish it. Alright, so I went ahead and turned it right side out after sewing the neckline, and I'm not going to stitch around the neckline, but I am going to leave the pins there until I have everything else sewn together so it'll hold itself in place. And the next thing I'm going to do is just to gather this front section down to 8 inches. And then I will do up the side seams and add binding to the arm side and all of that fun stuff. It has taken me about 45 minutes to get this far in this project. I'm kind of having allergy problems today, and I can just feel myself working in slow motion. So that's why I've decided to work on this today instead of the things I probably should be working on, just because I feel like I'm going to be a lot more productive if I save those projects for a day where I'm feeling a little bit peppier. So I still have to bind the arm side of this, but I'm going to attach it to the waistband first, just because I think that's going to make it easier. So I'm distributing the gathers evenly. Alright, so that is that, and now I'm just going to top stitch this into position. And now I'm just going to cut out some bias binding from the arm openings. Okay, so I've been working on this project for a total of about an hour. I just finished stitching the bias binding to the arm side, and then I folded it inward and tried to avoid any puckering while I was at it. So now I just have to hand stitch that down using teeny tiny whip stitches and then get it ironed. I also got the waistband sewn on. I'm not sure if I showed that part. So yeah, I'm pretty happy with how this is coming together, and I did a quick fitting with the pins in it, so not a great fitting, and it seems like it's going to work out well. So I will come back to this later today, and in the meantime, I'm going to get some lunch, and then I'm going to film that a little bit for a video that I must film. It is now the next day. I know I said this dress should not take me more than a day, and it really shouldn't. So far I've worked 90 minutes on it, and the bodice is already done, as you might be able to tell based on what's behind me. So yesterday I worked on it until 1:30 or 2 or something like that, and then I said that I need to film a video. I filmed the intro for my 1930s bonus project, making of video, and then I planned on editing that video, then going out to Home Depot, and then finishing my dress in the evening. That was the plan, but what actually happened is our 2 dogs got into a fight, and my mom's dog ended up attacking my dog and not letting go of her, and then we took my dog to an emergency vet appointment because she had a huge wound in her ear, and now she has this 1.5 inch deep hole that runs parallel to her ear canal, and if it was any worse she would have had to have emergency surgery. So yeah, that kind of spoiled my plans for yesterday evening, and then I had to spend today editing non-stop because I didn't get the editing I'd planned to done yesterday. But it is currently like 8 o'clock, 7:30, something like that, and I'm going to try and make some more progress on this dress. I'm probably not going to finish it, but I would like to get the skirt cut out. Now, ideally, I'd like to get 3 skirt panels out of this fabric and have them each be maybe 28 inches long, but I'm not sure if I have enough fabric to make that happen. So we'll just go ahead and measure this and see. Oh my. Yeah, I have significantly less of this than I thought I did. Let's see. 28, 28, 14. I thought I used the longer panel for the bodice, and that's why I went ahead and cut the lining from the same fabric too, because I thought I still had a 3-yard length that I could cut the skirt from. But that's not the case. I do have this piece remaining, which I could sew on to make one of the back panels longer. So I went ahead and French seamed that little piece that I had left onto the larger piece that I left. And now I'm just going to remeasure this and cut it into 3 equal lengths. The skirt might not end up having as large of a hem allowance as I would prefer, but it should be okay in the end. I've also come to the realization that I'm not going to get a lot of upstairs work done tonight. Gwen is really unhappy. She just wants to be held, and I don't blame her because it's been a really traumatic 24 hours. So I'm probably just going to set this up so I have some hand sewing to do and go downstairs and hold her. I was talking, so I forgot to do the math. That's 36. So it's basically 80 inches, which divided by 3 is, okay, so I'm going to cut it into 3 27-inch long pieces. Yeah, that's perfect. I have to make sure that the panel that has the seam in it goes at the back, because I don't want that to be on display. And I also have to pay attention to the direction of this print. Now I'm just going to sew these. So I know I said I was going to pin the hem and sew it by hand, but I'm worried it's going to fray if it's just whip stitches or a catch stitch securing the hem. And I think if I bind it, then I might end up getting puckers since it's a rectangle skirt. So I'm going to sew the hem by machine tomorrow morning, but I will gather the waistline down by hand just because I think that looks nicer and it gives you more control. And I'm also going to stitch the binding around the arm openings on by hand. So I can get the gathering and the hand sewing work done tonight, and then hopefully tomorrow morning I can get this finished up. I also have a little bit of hand sewing to do on the dresses over there, as well as a corset project. So I'll talk to you guys in the morning. Sorry that this one-day dress has turned into a 3-day dress disaster. So I have made some progress on the dress. I've also done a quick little fitting with it, and it's shorter than I wanted it to be. So I'm kicking myself for not being more careful when I was cutting out the bodice and allowing myself to have more fabric. But it is what it is. At least the other finishing work has gone well so far. I stitched all the binding in around the arm openings. I also turned this raw edge inward and whip stitched it down because I forgot to finish that earlier. I gathered the top edge of the skirt down by hand. Then I stitched onto the bodice with a 3/4 inch seam allowance, and I covered the raw edges with some lace tape. So now I'm going to stitch lace binding across the raw edge down the center back, and then I'm going to sew up the back seam with basting stitches and stitch in the zipper. So that's where I am right now, and I'm trying to use up bobbins on this project since it has so many different colors in it. So like this was all done with pink thread, then I'm probably going to stitch the zipper in with green thread, and then it's going to be hemmed with a different shade of green thread. It's kind of a mess, but you really can't tell since there's so many different colors in this dress. Also, ironically, there are a bunch of fruit flies in here. I think it's because I've had my window open, but it's kind of amusing me. Like maybe they're flocking to this dress. So I just went ahead and sewed up the back seam, and I also sewed binding to cover the raw edges. I'm just using some eyelet lace for binding on this one. And now I'm going to flip over to the right side of the fabric, and I'm going to pin the zipper into place. I feel like this is the modern way of sewing a zipper into a dress. It's not my favorite way, but it's the way that I'm going to use this time around. Alright, so I just stitched this. It looks like I was somewhat centered, but we shall see once I get the stitches out. Whoops, I accidentally went past the basting point and now the bottom of the seam wants to open up. I don't know if you can see my finger sticking through there. So I'm just going to re-stitch that really quickly. But the zipper undoes and does up just fine. So now I can go ahead and tuck these little tails in and get those stitched down so I have a nice finish on the interior. I just finished the zipper, and that's all the time I have to work for right now, but I wanted to show you the dress on. So I'm really happy with the fit of it. It's a little bit more off the shoulder than I was expecting, but it doesn't slip off the shoulder or anything, so I think it's fine. It hits me really nicely in the waist, and I think the fit is good. It feels really pretty comfortable and I think it's quite flattering. I don't know how much good this print is doing for me, and I don't love the placement of the grapes. Like, I think the placement here is cute and the placement here is cute, but having them in a line and seeing the repeat of the print isn't ideal, so I wish I'd paid more attention to that. But other than that, I do like this. It's shorter than I wanted it to be. Like, I ideally wanted it to be this length when it was finished, and I'm going to have to hem it, so it's going to end up shorter than this. But I can use ribbon to hem it, and then I will only lose like half an inch off the bottom edge. So I think that's what I'm going to do later tonight, and then I have to add a hook and bar to the top at the back of the bodice so the zipper will stay up, and then this is done. So once again, I totally forgot to film, but this is where I'm at right now. So I stitched lace binding onto the bottom of the skirt using a 1/4 inch seam allowance, and then I ironed it flat, and now I'm just turning it inward. So in total, this hem has taken up about 1/3 of an inch, which is really pretty good. It's still going to mean that the skirt is shorter than I want it to be, but it's better than nothing. And the lace binding I'm using will weigh down the hem ever so slightly, which should make it less prone to blowing up. But ideally, you want to do the widest hem you possibly can, because that means you have extra material so you can repair issues later if it's required. You can also let it down depending on who wears it in the future, and it will weigh the hem down so it's less likely to blow up. So having a wider hem is ideal, and I think it looks nicer too. But this is what we're doing this time around because I was silly when cutting the material. So as you can see, my fabric's taking up pretty much the entire table, so I don't know how much of this I can film, but I will try setting up the camera somehow. I have a couple threads to clip, but other than that, the dress is done. Overall, I'm kind of disappointed with how this turned out. I think just the way this week went, it ended up kind of putting a damper on this project. And then I had the issues with not having enough material for the hem length I wanted, and I also sort of screwed up with the placement. So considering this is a very simple project, kind of everything that could go wrong with it went wrong. I will say that I feel like it gapes a little bit at the back, and I also feel like the arm openings are a little bit tight. I originally drafted them to be quite tight because I thought I wanted to add sleeves, and the further up the sleeves start, the more mobility they tend to have. So that was my goal with that, but it ended up making it slightly less comfortable than it should be, though it's still a pretty comfortable dress. So I've just made a few notes onto the pattern about potentially adding darts to the back and lowering the arm opening here. Here's what the finished hem looks like for anyone who's curious. It's a pretty nice way of doing a hem, to be honest. Yeah, very quick to do too. It took me, I think, a grand total of 5 minutes. And yeah, now I'm going to switch over to an outro so you can see me wearing this dress and hear my thoughts in a little bit more detail. So I have not even reviewed the footage for this video yet, but I had hair and makeup on. Well, I usually have hair on, but I styled my hair, so I thought this would be a good time to film an outro. I finished this dress about 5 days after I started it. I think I kind of jinxed myself when I said that it would only take 1 day because it took a lot longer than that just due to circumstances outside of my control. I also jinxed myself when I said that it should fit pretty well because it's such a simple design. I think because it was so simple, I got a little bit lazy with making alterations to the mock-up, and I'm not as happy with how it fits as I would like to be. As you can tell, it fits pretty well. I think the interfaced waistband is quite flattering, and I like the gathering through the bust. It also fits pretty nicely at the back, but when I relax my shoulders, it does gape slightly just at the center back. So I really need to put darts at the tops of those panels in the future to make sure that it fits me a little bit better. My biggest problem with the fit of this though is one that isn't necessarily obvious. I just don't like where it hits me on the shoulder. It hits kind of on the end of the shoulder, but I feel like the straps are too wide for that to look intentional. If I made this again, I'd probably bind the top edge with bias binding and then have the straps be little spaghetti straps that sit much further up on the shoulder. I think that's just a lot more flattering than what this ended up being. So I kind of regret not paying more attention to the fit of this and the shaping of this and really fine-tuning it during fittings throughout the process. Sometimes when you're making the simplest of things, you end up getting lazy and issues like this just end up happening, and they definitely happen to me. But I do think it's a flattering dress. It fits me through the waist, which is nice. It's relatively comfortable to wear, and I think the print is just a ton of fun. So I think I'm going to get a good amount of wear out of it next summer and for whatever remaining warm days we have this year. But it's definitely not my favorite dress, and I'm a little disappointed in some of the decisions I made when I was working on it. But it is what it is, and not every project is going to be a fantastic success. But I really hope you enjoyed seeing the bits that I did film about making this. I'm sorry if it was kind of random. I think in addition to getting lazy when making this, I kind of got lazy when filming it. It was just a very chaotic week. But I really appreciate you taking the time to watch this, and I shall talk to all of you very soon.